the Schlage Primus Everest, 6 standards, 5 rotating finger pins, Oh my gosh, I hate these rotating finger pins. How I was kind of doing this was based on what the angle is you can kind of like pull it or push it. And so I would kind of like slowly drag as I was like pulling, and then I'd kind of file back in and then like slowly drag as I'm pulling, depending on like what orientation it needed to go. And I heard the nice little thwack from 6, and all I felt was 4. But jiggle testing, they just kind of feel loose. So yeah, it was a huge open, super excited with that. This was like I've had this lock for quite a while, but this was like, I don't know, my 10th or so attempt today. Oh my gosh, that felt so good. All right. But yeah, you can also see that I marked my pick too, make it a little easier to figure out where the pins were roughly. So that way I knew where I was scrubbing. And if you hold your pick at like kind of an angle, you can like feel the sides of the chamber, but on some of the pins you can't lift up enough to be able to feel the sides, otherwise you're oversetting. So that's why I marked it. That is open. Oh my gosh. All right, let's go. It's a big open. I think once you understand how to rotate them, it's not as bad. But man, figuring out how to rotate them and what works for you, that is rough. All right, so let's put this in here like this. Rotate it this way. And I don't need to shim this, I've taken this apart a million times. Okay. So there's our key pins, sidebar. Let's do the sidebar and side springs first. We'll do a close-up of this later. See if we can dump these out. There we go. All right, let's dump key pins. Okay, those are all right. Nothing going on here. Here you can see the angle and heights of the rotating finger pins. So you can see some of these you just barely have to slide under. But these two kind of high lifts in the back are what we're kicking my butt. You can see like we got a nice spread. We got some that, you know, are angled both ways, and then some that are neutral. Some high lifts, some low lifts. So let's go ahead and zoom back in. Key right there. So this is what they look like. Oops. This is what they look like. And again, we'll get a close-up of these in a second. Because they're not all the same, depending on what angle they're set at. Whereas like the other locks that I've picked, the bitting is on the sidebar. On these, the bitting and orientation is on the pin, and then reflected in the key. see the springs. Zoom back out. See all 5 springs in there. I'll just go ahead and dump these out. Oh my gosh, they almost all lined up. Okay. Alright. Nothing crazy going on with the core. Besides the funky keyway. And this is actually the most open of the keyways. I've got the normal Schlage Primus, and that one's a lot tighter at the bottom. I couldn't use this, what is this? This is an 11. I don't know if you can see that. Probably not because of the glare, but take my word for it. This is a multi-pick 11. So there's that. Actually, show off the sidebar. So yeah, it just has the cuts, and then you can see these guys, when they're in there correctly, they rotate in like that. And they do have like some cutouts, so you do get like a nice audible feedback when it is in there. But yeah. Whereas like, you know, some other locks with side pins, you can like kind of switch them around. It doesn't matter. These ones, they have to go back in the same spot or the key won't work. Let's go ahead and zoom back in. Chamber number 1. And these are all standards. Number 2. Number 3. Dump all the springs at the end. And last but not least, number 4. You can see this does have a cutout for the sidebar groove. Gonna dump all these springs out. Yeah, that was probably one of the more tricky locks I've ever had to pick with side pins. Took me a while. I've played with this guy for a bit. Been on a roll lately though, which is good. That is the Schlage Primus Everest, picked and gutted. Let's go ahead and get it reassembled while we're here. Zoom back in, you can see what's going on. So 3, 2, 1. And 4, 5, 6. Nice. Yeah, I'll say the hardest part about this log was definitely figuring out the finger pins, but yeah, that's a fun pick once you figure out what you're doing. I think putting the finger pins back in first will probably be the easiest. Okay, those are all in there. I've got 1, 2, kind of pressing down, putting the key in. You can kind of see how they move, angle. And then if we zoom in here, you can see they're all lined up. If we had one of these in the wrong spot that wasn't the right orientation or height, it would be a little up or down, and then you'd see that gate kind of like this. So, I mean, the real test is, does the sidebar depress? Let's just flung that. And there is, it looks like the sidebar can go in anyway, and I'm sure that it can, but my lock had issues turning one way. It was like issues turning counterclockwise if I had it in like one way, and if I had it in the other way, then it would turn both ways like pretty smooth. So not a big deal, but if I want to fix that, or if I notice that it's doing that, then I'll probably take it apart and put it back in the other way. Okay. Yeah. So you can see it turns this way, but it's kind of a struggle to turn that way. Not a big deal. Let's take it out and swap that and see if it changes anything. Yeah, that's a little better. It's still pretty tight, but it's not as bad as the other way. Cool. Put finger on the face so we don't accidentally pull the core out. Get the tail piece back on. What I do is I tighten it all the way down where it won't go anymore, and I back off like 2 of those half circles. That's normally pretty good. If you find your lock that you like can't pull out the key, or that it's turning really tightly, if you can't pull out the key because the core is pulling out, you probably have it on too loose. And if you can barely turn it, then it's probably on too tight. So, pro tips. But yeah, that is the Schlage Primus Everest, picked and gutted with Reassembly. Thank you guys for watching.